The brain is like any other organ in the body. It requires energy to function. And if you're not making enough energy from your diet, the brain's not going to work very well.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Zone podcast. And today we are talking about metabolism and cognition. So, Dr. Sears, I know cognitive decline is definitely a fear as we age, but I would argue that it's even starting in earlier generations too, the concern about, memory loss. So what do you think we can do to kind of address the concerns with losing our cognition as we age?
Well, first of all, we have to understand the brain is like any other organ in the body. It requires energy to function. And if you're not making enough energy from your diet, the brain's not going to work very well. So basically, when we talk about a brain drain, we're really talking about an energy shortage in the brain. And that gives rise to the cognitive deficits we see at all stages of our society, from old age to basically younger children.
And why is the brain so sensitive to making enough ATP?
Well, first of all, the brain is an energy hog. It accounts for about 2% of the body's weight, yet it consumes 20% of the energy. And most of that energy comes from glucose. And so basically that if you are not getting enough glucose converted to energy for the brain, it's not going to function very well.
And so the vast majority is going to come from glucose for this energy source, correct?
It turns out, yes. The different organs use different energy sources. The heart uses primarily fat, but the brain primarily uses glucose. And the reason is, most of the brain is composed of fat. So if you're burning fat and you're burning your brain, that's not a good mix. Mm-hmm. So again, this leads people to say, well, I know if I want good brain function, I'll eat lots of sugar. Not so quick, because again, the conversion of food into energy is a lot more complex.
Mm-hmm. So if we're not supposed to eat sugar and it's sort of supposed to be a balance, what's your recommendation?
Well, surprisingly, the zone diet. Now, why do I say that? Because the zone diet was developed to keep your metabolism in a zone. So in that zone, it works at peak efficiency. So if we really want to basically have our brain working at peak efficiency, we want to have maximum conversion of the food we eat into ATP. That's the energy all cells use. Now, what's the right mix? The data is pretty clear after now 30 years. It is basically a calorie-restricted diet, but one that basically is balanced in protein to the glycemic load. And if you can maintain that, you have the keys to prevent brain drain for the rest of your life.
So, Dr. Sears, what about the ketogenic diet, which I know doesn't have a lot of carbohydrates in it? What's the impact here, would you say, or is there any long-term consequences of having that deficit of glucose for the brain over time?
Yes, there are actually quite a few. Remember I said earlier that the brain primarily uses glucose, and a ketogenic diet says glucose is evil, bad. Well, wait a minute. The brain says, what about me? It turns out that what a ketogenic diet what it does, it generates a certain type of byproduct, really waste fuel. It's called 3-beta-hydroxybutyric acid. This is a kind of a poor man's way of activating AMPK. So you get some activity, but not as much as you possibly could. And as a consequence, the brain function is not nearly as well, as high or as acute as it could be.
So, and how does the zone the zone diet work to help activate AMPK?
Well, the zone diet works because basically you're reducing calories. You say, well, my God, that means the brain's going to eat itself. Saying, no, it's not going to eat itself. You're reducing calories, and that activates AMPK. And once you activate AMPK, now you basically reorchestrate the metabolism in the brain and the metabolism in every cell in the body. So the secret is how to keep AMPK active. And that's why basically the zone diet is so key to it. But that's not the only part that activates AMPK. Another part are omega-3 fatty acids. Remember, the brain's primarily composed of fat. And so what type of fat? The fat that really makes the brain move are these omega-3 fatty acids. So if you're not consuming enough, you're basically starving the brain of its key factor. So again, and the last aspect is consuming polyphenols. Now, why are they important? They reduce oxidative stress. That causes inflammation. That causes basically brain dysfunction. So the three components, a calorie-restricted diet with the right ratio of protein to the glycemic load, coupled with adequate levels of omega-3 fatty acids and adequate intake of polyphenols, is the magic elixir to maintain your brain working at peak efficiency for how long? The rest of your life.
So, Dr. Sears, I would say, or I'd venture to say that, following this strategy, it doesn't only work for, cognitive impairment, but any sort of neurological issue people might be having, because it's helping with the neuroinflammation, optimizing the AMPK activity, and giving enough glucose to the brain to do what it needs to do to function.
And that's right, because we can look at now other neurological diseases that occur at a younger age, things like ADHD. Say, why does my child have ADHD? Well, the fact is they're basically not making enough of the AMPK. Now, we can talk about this because we've done studies and published these nearly 20 years ago in terms of using only one part of metabolic engineering, that is the high dose omega-3 fatty acids, to increase AMPK production. And what do you see? Within 30 days, dramatic improvements in children already taking drugs to treat their ADHD. So the fact is, we've basically, and this is also true in depression in adults. So again, here's an area in terms of depression and ADHD, other causes of basically brain drain, in addition to the things we see at old age, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So it's all a continuum throughout your life. If you basically activate AMPK, keep it in a therapeutic zone, then good things happen to your brain. And usually when good things happen in your brain, good things happen in your life.
So, Dr. Sears, let me just ask you one more question. What are some of the first signs that you would notice in terms of like AMPK not being activated appropriately? What would people feel where maybe they might say, I really do have to kind of rein it in now, change my diet? Or is there anything that you'd physically feel or know the decline of?
Well, not physically feel, but will notice. You'll notice basically your inability to concentrate. Concentrating takes a lot of energy. And if you're not making a lot of energy, that is ATP, you're not going to concentrate very well. So maintaining conversation, maintaining cognitive engagement, these are all signs saying something's not right upstairs. And what's not right? The brain's hungry. Feed the beast.
So, Dr. Sears, there's a lot that goes into neurological health, cognition. If people want to learn more about metabolic engineering and how they can optimize their bodies to get through this successfully, to age successfully, to add more quality to their years, where can they go to learn more information about this?
Well, first of all, knowledge is power. So I'd first suggest going to drsears.com when we talk about basically the intricacies of metabolic engineering and why. Because unless you understand why, then you basically start pulling things out of the sky saying, maybe this will be it. Maybe if I eat some licorice, saying, where's the data? Saying, I don't know. So again, start with science. Then once you understand the science, go to zoneliving.com to get the products that help you make that science or turn that science into basically actual reality. So the combination two, knowledge is power, but you have to have the products to make that knowledge useful.